Hey there, thanks for watching. In this video, I'm going to be sharing my March budget recap. So that's how I spent my money in the entire month of March. If that sounds interesting to you, then just keep watching. So I've decided to revisit some of the content that I was posting way in the beginning, in the early days of my channel, kind of my core foundation of content. And that was a lot of budgeting, a lot of budget with me, how I spent my money diaries, what I spend in a month. And just recently someone commented that they missed those days of my channel, and my response was, yeah, I'm never going to share my budget again. Well, never say never, because just recently I was thinking about revisiting that, and then I decided to give it a shot and see what the response is. So before we get started and dive into the numbers, I want to just give you some background on how I run my budget. I'm going to be sharing my budget and expense tracker, which I also have for sale in my Etsy shop. Now, you don't need to use this at all. You can use a notebook or a piece of paper or mint.com, or I know there's several apps out there from several popular financial gurus. The most important thing about a budget is that you're doing it in a way that works for you and that you're going to be consistent with and you're going to check in with. Something I've heard is it takes about 90 days to establish that habit of budgeting before you can start to see any kind of traction from setting a budget and sticking to it. That said, I have been budgeting for close to 15 years. There are months when I stray wildly from my budget, and there are times when I really stick to it and come under. It all depends. For me, the act of being accountable with how I actually spend my money is more important and actually reveals more about my choices and where my priorities lie for that particular month. So I've also seen some high net worth individuals say that they don't do a set budget and then close out every month. They run their budgets quarterly or what have you. And I certainly understand that when you get to a certain income level, you're not managing the pennies necessarily as detailed or as often. So I can see that. I also see that at the level where I am on a fairly low income, that it's very helpful for me to be this connected to my money and to have ways to automate the spending and the tracking of my money. And for me personally, at any level, the act of being accountable with how I actually spend my money is very, very, very powerful. My process for doing this is that at the end of the day, I will enter everything I spent for that day, whether it's on Amazon or in cash or via my debit or credit card. I will enter that transaction into my Google Sheets spreadsheet. So that said, I also go back and I look at my bank statements to see if there are any transactions that I missed. Sometimes things that are auto debited and will come out automatically, I won't necessarily be as connected to on a day-to-day level. And I'll show you how I break that up by kind of my fixed costs and then my variable expenses. And with that, I'm going to hop into my Excel spreadsheet and show you my screen. So here is my Google Sheets template that I use for budgeting. And you can see I have a couple tabs down here at the bottom. I only budget on my take-home pay, so I have a fairly high amount of deductions coming out of my paycheck. So I have HSA savings, I have health insurance, and I have contributions to my 401k that come out off the top of my paycheck, and that works for me, so I only budget for the remaining net paycheck amount. So starting here on the fixed costs tab, you can see I have the total over here of all of my fixed costs. Now these are the utilities that I pay, and here are some health categories that I have as well. Now my health categories, you can see, add up to $150. So that's a fairly significant advice. I do share those costs with I do allow other members of my family to use these health costs, so they benefit more than just me. I also have my phone bill, a transfer amount to savings that I use as kind of a revolving emergency fund for whatever I might need it for. So I might need it within that month and need to transfer it immediately out that month. Or there are times when I get to save that and kind of roll it over to the next month, but it's kind of a revolving accessible emergency fund, immediate emergency fund. I have my mobile phone costs by month, and then I have my tithe. And all of that comes out to $1,051. So rolling over to the summary tab, this is a summary of all of the daily entries that I put in on the Enter Here tab. So I'm just going to show you the summary tab, then I'm going to roll over to the Enter Here tab, and you can see where all this data is pulled from. And again, all of these formulas are in the Google Sheets template that I have listed on my Etsy shop if you'd like to give that a try. Once more, you do not need to use any specific software to budget. The most important thing is that you do it in a way that works for you. So you can see I have my income up here and then the total income over here. So I do practice an accountability practice of being accountable for every dollar. So that doesn't mean that I budget every dollar, but that does mean that I know where every dollar stands throughout the month. So right at the top, we have some business expenses, and that comes out of my business account. So that's kind of tracked separately on my business tracking, which gets, and all of these expenses are deducted as a business expense. So I have Canva for business, and then I have a microphone case that I bought last month. Then we go to the food out category and the grocery category, which is continually one of my largest categories. So you'll see some of the things that I spent on. And again, I am very accountable with how I'm spending them and what I'm spending. And they just are what we are. So inflation has certainly raised those prices. So where I've seen inflation just since February hit is really in my food costs, my groceries costs, not eating out, in my groceries costs, and then in my transportation, my fuel costs. So those have really gone up by about 30%, I would say. And someone asked recently if that's affected my financial independence goals. And my answer is not really, because I feel like there are other aspects that affect my financial independence goals a little bit more, but they've certainly taken a chunk out of my paycheck. So you can see what I spent again for groceries and food. And then if I roll over to the summary, you'll see exactly what that was. So in total for food out and groceries, and again, these two are combined. It's just, it's sobering. Don't look at that grand total. That's for the whole year. So together with food and groceries, I spent a total of $1,082.89. And somebody made a comment that if I stopped spending $30 on bacon, I'd reach financial independence faster. And a gentler response would be, I sure would, but a life without bacon, is it really worth living? That's my answer to that. So I also had some additional health expenses here, $10 and then $51 for vitamins. Once more, health is wealth, and I am happy to spend for an ounce of prevention versus a pound of cure. So house cleaning was $140, and again, that's very well worth it. I had a few no spend days as well, and I enter $1 for that so that it tracks on my summary tab over here. You'll see if I roll over to no spend, I get $4, which means that there were 4 no spend days in the month. Usually I aim for a few more than just 4 no spend days, but I'll take what I can get. I did have some personal care expenses and a gift expense. All in, that was about $100. I had some more personal care, which could probably fall under health. Both of those items were health related. I started getting pretty bad motion sickness, and I go on 2-hour-long car rides, so those were needed some ginger pills. I also had, again, personal care expenses. Then we have our transportation fees, and you can see it got a little hefty this month. We spent $431 in total for transportation, and that included an E-ZPass payment, which is challenging to budget for because I never know when the E-ZPass payment will be deducted because it varies by the amount that I'm driving, which is frustrating, but it just is. So that's just something I kind of am prepared for with a little bit extra cushion in my checking account. And that's where we are. So if I roll over to the summary template, you can see how all that plays out. So for business, I had $36. And just to say that the summary template is really handy because it kind of aggregates all of my spending throughout the month. That way I don't need to tally it up. This is just kind of a handy rundown by month. I have the other months hidden, you can see. So business, spent $36, food out, $416, gifts, $56, groceries, $666.64, health, $61, household, $140, no spend days I had 4, personal care, $156.99, transportation, $439. So the grand total brought us to $1,968.36, and then I had my fixed cost of about $1,000, which did include that about $300 of revolving savings. And I did not need to pull anything from savings this month, so that should accumulate in there. I have an Ally checking account for my accessible emergency fund, and I earn like 0.1% interest, which is better than nothing, especially given the current climate. So that's what we're looking at. You can see it matches just about right on for my income. And that's what I spent this month. So that was my budget recap video for March of 2022. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I love to hear from you and interact with you. It is a pleasure to receive your comments. So thanks as always for watching, and I hope you'll keep watching. Bye.